Hey everybody, I'm Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today I'm going to talk about 7 things that worried us as kids. But before I get into that, I'd just like to say that last couple weeks I've been working 7 days a week, and it's starting to get hot, and we're coming off a cool winter. So the heat is pretty bad, when you're working outside. So I'm just exhausted. The owner of the tiny house was going away for a week or so, and I thought I was going to get a couple days off while they were gone. But as it turns out, it's not looking that way. So I'm going to continue to work even while they're gone. So my point is that I have very little time, working 7 days a week, and it's really hot out there. So if I do miss a video, 1 or 2 videos over the next couple weeks, don't get worried or anything. I'm fine. I'm just exhausted. I really like making these videos, so I'm going to continue to do it as regularly as I can. I try to be consistent, but sometimes I'm just so tired that it's really difficult to get myself up off the couch and do anything else. So, but I'll try not to miss any video posts, but if I do, it's no big deal. I'm just tired. I just want to let y'all know that. All right. So the 7 things that worry Gen X as kids. Number 1, nuclear holocaust. We're always scared that the nukes were going to fly. I mean, we grew up, we were born right after the whole Cuba missile crisis and all that, and that was still fresh on everybody's minds while we were kids. Now we had to crawl under our desks and all that stuff in preparation. It was like, the Russian czar or Russian president or whatever just lived 24 hours a day with his finger right over the button waiting to annihilate us. So yeah, that was something that was always there, and we always had to be afraid of. Not to the extent that like the boomers were and the generation, in the 50s and stuff. They were digging bunkers and that kind of thing. So, but not quite to that extent, but still, it was always a looming danger, right? Nuclear holocaust. So that was a big thing that we were afraid of growing up. Number 2 is stranger danger. We all remember that. For some reason, abductions were a big thing. I think, honestly, that abductions now are way more common. Way more kids get disappeared now. But back then, for some reason, it was just in everybody's psyche and everybody's minds, stranger danger. And what I remember, it was always a white van we had to be afraid of. The molester van, it was called. So white vans were like these creepy, weird things. I always picture the evil clown driving it, run around abducting children or whatever. But yeah, that whole stranger danger thing was big on everybody's minds. We always were on the lookout for white vans. And it was always in the back of your mind, we're out there playing or whatever. We see a white van driving by, stranger danger. So yeah. Yeah, the old stranger danger. I'm sure most of y'all remember that one. Number 3 is satanic panic. And it was like an urban myth thing that all these satanic cults were infiltrating society. And I remember that. I remember a lot of stuff about satanic cults and Satanism and stuff in the news and in the media all the time. It seemed like they were, sacrificing people or whatever, doing just whatever your childish mind could dream up. These satanic cults were up to, and a lot of our parents and grandparents some of them went overboard with that stuff and really, Jesus was coming back and all this and that. And really, imprinted on us a lot of stuff with Christianity and Satanism and all that stuff. That's a deeply imprinted thing in our minds, that whole satanic panic thing. And some of us rebelled against that, but yeah, it was a real thing. That satanic panic thing was a real thing. Why they blew that up in the media and made that a thing, like all these satanic cults were after the world, were after us. I don't know, but it happened, and it's a crazy ass thing to look back on now. Number 4 is the AIDS epidemic. That was a scary thing. Like, we, as children, with that going on and seeing celebrities get AIDS and all this stuff, and all the fear mongering involved with that, and we were all afraid because we were coming of age sexually, and we were starting to go out into the world, and this whole AIDS epidemic was going on. So it was a nervous time. I don't know how many of us were actually frightened. I'm sure some of us were, but it was a thing. It was a thing always in the back of your mind, we're going to get AIDS and die. Nobody wanted to die like that. So it was a really weird time to be alive, a really weird time to be coming of age like that, with that whole epidemic going on, and it linked to sex. You know what I'm saying? So that whole thing was really weird if you think about it. And I just wonder how that affected Gen X as a whole. Our generation, dealing with sex and growing up with that fear during our sexual maturity, coming of age. So I don't know. I'd like to see a study on that. I might have to look that up. But yeah, that was a real fear. That was a real thing going on, and we saw a lot of celebrities die of AIDS. A lot of celebrities come down with AIDS, even if they didn't die. Magic Johnson being probably the most famous of those. I remember one of my friends in the Army crying, literal tears running down his face when he heard that Magic Johnson got AIDS. And that I wondered about that, like, why the hell do you care? He's plays basketball. You don't know that dude. But he did care. He was a big basketball fan, I guess, and a big Magic Johnson fan. And that really upset the dude. But yeah, that whole thing with AIDS was a really, not only a scary time, but just a strange time because of the age we were, right? It had a lasting psychological effect on us, I think. Number 5 is quicksand. Quicksand. We had a lot of movies and TV shows. That was just like a trope back then, a thing that they would throw in there. They could put their characters in a dangerous situation. I just have them fall in some quicksand. So then they did a lot, and we thought that quicksand was a more common thing, right? As small children, we thought quicksand was a common thing, especially down here in Florida, where all of the ground is sand. So yeah, quicksand was a real worry for us as little kids. We thought that I would, fall into quicksand on my way to the bus stop or whatever, that kind of crazy shit. But yeah, they had it in all kinds of movies and TV shows where we saw people falling into quicksand and have to get rescued, or they just went down and disappeared. The earth would just swallow them up, that kind of thing. But that whole, anytime anybody mentions quicksand or says something about quicksand, it brings back those memories. I see that movie Kroll. Remember that one guy fell in the quicksand, and Never Ending Story, where he lost his horse in the quicksand. That was, or maybe that was some kind of muck or murk, but it's the same thing. Saying, falling into the earth, getting swallowed up. But yeah, that was pretty prevalent thing back in the 80s. 70s and 80s was quicksand, and it actually worried us as kids, a lot of us anyway. Number 6 is earwigs. Earwigs. I don't know what y'all call them, but those little bugs with the pinchers on the ass. Yeah, we called them earwigs, and that's all I've ever heard them called was earwigs. And because they don't have anything to do with ears, but for some reason they got labeled with that word ear. So I always thought they crawled in your ear. And anytime I'd see one, I'd go to sleep that night worried that it was going to crawl in my ear or whatever. And for many years as a kid, that was one of my biggest fears, that an earwig was going to get in my ear and tunnel to my brain with those pincher things. It never really occurred to me why he would want to crawl backwards, but whatever. Yeah, earwigs. That just brings back funny memories as you know, how I used to think as a child, you know, worried about earwigs. That was like one of my biggest concerns, earwigs. And number 7, stop, drop, and roll. I remember being taught that as a kid, you know, stop, drop, and roll. We'd have to practice that out on the playground and stuff, stop, drop, and roll and all that. Like, you know, people just spontaneously bursted into flames. That's it. Fire was not just fire, but people on fire was like, I don't know why, it was a big thing. They acted like it was a real danger to people. I've never seen anyone on fire, not in real life. I've never seen anyone catch fire. I'm sure that, you know people who have died in fires in a house or something, but just, you know, you're walking down the street and you just have to stop, drop, and roll. Or playing in the park or something and you just have to stop, drop, and roll. I've never seen that ever have to happen. So, yeah, the whole stop, drop, and roll thing was pretty prevalent when we were kids. It was taught to us. They probably don't teach it anymore. It's probably like cursive writing. There's no need for it. So people don't spontaneously combust anymore. I wonder why that is. Maybe because they started using polyester instead of cotton or something. I don't know. But yeah, stop, drop, and roll. That's the last one. We don't catch on fire anymore. Not as much as we used to. That's a good thing though, right? And I'll leave you there with that. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you'd like to support the channel by becoming a member, I'll leave that link down in the description, or you can head over to the channel page and become a member that way. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can do so by clicking on that super thanks button down there. Or you can head over to Buy Me a Cup of Coffee and buy me a cup of coffee. I appreciate those of you who do that, and I'll leave that link down in the description too. If you're interested in Gen X gear, we got some pretty cool stuff over there at Redbubble. Gen X Thinks and Gen X branded stuff. T-shirts, coffee mug stickers, all kinds of cool stuff. But I'll leave that link down in the description for you as well. If you can't or don't want to support the channel in any of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. That helps out one hell of an awful lot, so thank you very much to those of you who do that. I really do appreciate it. If you have any ideas for future episodes of Gen X Thinks, please put those down in the comments, or you can email us, and the email is genxthinks@gmail.com. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.